Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I wanted to just do a quick video on sharing the finals that you all created. Congratulations on completing the course. Um, it was really remarkable to see most of the finals, which is great. I know some of you couldn't, there was just too much on your plate, and that's fine. But I wanted to share each other's because they're really fantastic. Thanks again for putting in the effort for the last 5 weeks. Um, Art is not about the objects that one makes. Art is about creating something from nothing, beauty from trash. Um, and we all have that ability to do it. It's um, it's hard. It's not easy, but to transform, you know, all the human crap that we live with sometimes. Um, that's art. It's not about the stuff. It's not about if you can draw or paint. It's about um, creating a beautiful space for yourself, right? Every day. And prioritizing yourself, prioritizing what you need. So I'm here in the place that I find most beautiful in this lush landscape. So let's go. So we're going to go through identify slides first, and then a couple of people chose to do the final projects. So let's do this. Um, we're going to go, this is by Melissa. Let's go to the slideshow, the current slide, looking at the work of Doris Salcedo, okay? So when a person disappears, Doris Salcedo is this fantastic artist working in Colombia, dealing with a lot of devastation and dealing with a lot of issues that Colombia faces, a lot of violence. It's really, really difficult. Um, and she takes the leftover tracings of the people that have been taken or have been killed. She goes to the families, she sits with their work, and if there's objects that are left over from that person's life, she transforms it into art. So she's here. This quote is great. When a person disappears, everything becomes impregnated with that person's presence. Every single object, as well as every space, becomes a reminder of absence, as if absence were more important than presence. There's this almost felt energy. We're all going to be gone. I mean, let's be real here. We're all going to end up being the fertilizer for the soil for the next growth. Um, and we live on a planet where our ancestors have fed the fertile ground that we thrive on or try to thrive on. Um, so it's important to remember that absence, right? But let's go as to why her work is so important. This piece, and thanks, Melissa, of course, for this presentation. Uprooted by Doris Salcedo from 2022, made up of over 800 dead trees and steel. And now imagine, yeah? Imagine and think about an environmental aspect. Dead trees, 800 of them. That's quite a lot of energy. Even though they're dead, their presence is still there in that shape. Doris Salcedo is a Colombian-born and bred political art sculptor, born in 58, a time where growing up, she experimented so much. She experienced so much devastation and displacement. I believe through her life trauma and experiences, she can empathize so well with the victims that she bases her art off. It's impressive how her mind works and creates these custom sculptures. After spending time with the victims, she wants to help be heard, almost like some sort of vigilantism, psychological art, sculptor activism. Um, it's no wonder she has been awarded prestigious awards like the Guggenheim and the Velázquez Prize, Hiroshima and Nasher, right? Um, but look at this form, look at this shape, right? It's in the shape of a house. This is our home. This tree is really is what we breathe. We are in relation to this tree and nature around us, and to put it in this shape, amazing, really extraordinary. And then her other piece, and I know other people have done presentation on Doris Salcedo, but the Shibboleth in 2007 I thought was really fantastic piece, cracking the floor of the institution, right? And all that that means, understanding that our very foundation is wrong. Capitalist, colonial foundation. It's the wrong one, and it is broken. I mean, she literally made a slash through a cement wall. I mean, cement floor where there was a huge gap. So attending in Lorenzo University in 18, finishing with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in New York in 84. She finished her master's degree in Bogota in Colombia to actually teach at the University of Colombia. Doris's use of materials, I presume, is a combination of upbringing and learning in her studies how to help her use what she has and actually mold these things together in a safe, proper way to express exactly what she is mentally creating into real life visual art. Her use of metal, wood, concrete, flowers, fabric, and other materials is genius. I agree. Her ability to let the viewers be able to feel her purpose for her art, but also see it and interpret it in our own way is quite fascinating, extremely talented. In 2007, the Tate Modern Shibboleth representing a rupture in the timeline about the dangers of crossing borders of humankind does just that, using a concrete cast Colombian rock surface with a wire chain link fence, set it in the turbine hall stretching 548 feet in length, this crack. And when you go and zoom in and look into the crack, you see the Colombian rock face, the rock face wall. All right. So the purpose of what the crack is also showing you is also important. But think about like how institution and that cracks what it means to crack the very foundation, which we understand is really important. Duracell sodas are is very intense at first glance, but the more I gazed at it, the deeper it drew me in and becomes more meaningful as well as awareness to the emotional pain that created her art sculptures. And the 1,550 chairs that you see here on the left, stacked between two city buildings she created in Istanbul in 2002 is so amazingly creative. She really is unique in her art. Now they represented the missing house here and the people, right? There's a space that is empty, like an empty lot, and she filled it with chairs. This creation is about the wars and represents the odds of and forgotten pain and suffering that generations and cultures and people have endured and put behind them instead of facing them, working through them to heal in order not to repeat history over and over again, as we always seem to do. I agree. To me, these chairs are a symbol of how the past and ghosts are never gone and will haunt you if you don't face them and fix mistakes to be able to really move forward. It's such a visual presence, right? Imagine a building the size of these stacked chairs and what that means and how, buildings only come together when human beings can create and construct these things. But when people are missing or go or war, right? We miss thousands and thousands of people just wiped away. Um, it's reminding me now of Hawaii, of what's happening there from ecological problems. How Dora Salcedo's art relates to me. This is in relation to Melissa. I couldn't choose just one of her art collections. I felt hypnotized by these three works of art. Uprooted spoke to me immediately. I started to think of my grandmother with each piece, thinking of how she migrated here illegally on her own and made her roots here after fleeing her country in the Dominican Republic after experiencing such trauma and pain. She moved to the States. She met the father of her kids and raised their three daughters on her own. How hard it was for her finding work and navigating through Puerto Rico, Miami, New York, and Boston on her own, not knowing the language and struggling to make ends meet, but somehow never letting it get her down, always kind, with a smile, godly, and believing in human kindness, which I saw when I looked at the shibboleth. When I look at 15,000 chairs between two buildings, I see all the generational karma and misleading ways that we taught and damaging that we all try to look away from and ignore as if it will magically disappear. I mean, the whole of the planetary existence now, we seem to want to have sort of in the back of our head, but not really face that, our climate is in crisis, or at least the climate that we need in order to survive. I am also glad this project was presented. I have learned so much about Latin American history. Thank you. I mean, it's an amazing project, and really her work is very, very powerful. For those of you who are interested, go look deeper into her works. Let's go to the next presentation. Now, again, these are the identified slides. So Gady, I think this is yours. And I'm not going to be able to present everybody's today, but I'll try to get, because I don't want this video to be too long, but just to have a little bit so that you know what is important to each of you in the class. You also have a lot of overlap. So here is the work of Frida Kahlo. I think a lot of the work is about healing and, well, trauma, right? Which humans all have, suffering, which we all have, right? Um, and then somehow managing to transform again that dirt or that pain and be able to change, be able to morph it, transform it. Might not succeed, but at least, especially in Kahlo's case, um, she did that. She just put all the stuff and the pain that she felt and put it on a canvas. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo, also known as Frida Kahlo, was the popular Mexican artist. She was very well known for her inspirational artwork. All her paintings tell her own life, her loves, her difficulties, and her fears in her past. She had different styles for her work, many of which were self-portraits. From her childhood through her adulthood, she underwent many sufferings and endurances, which one can see in her art. Frida's paintings also represented her culture. She was very proud of where she came from and made sure to show it. I chose this piece, and I think this is a really important piece. Henry Ford Hospital Flying Bed, by Frida Kahlo, because I felt that this painting spoke out to me. You can see the pain and suffering she had to go through at this time. I feel like many women can relate to what is taking place in this painting, and many of us have being similar have through similar experience. I like the way this artist shows us the reality of life through her art. Her life was colorful, but at the same time painful. I completely agree with you. This is a traumatic point in time where Frida has a miscarriage while she's in New York, and and I forget the date, but there's 1 out of 4 women experience some form of trauma around miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, or some other, or the trauma of actual labor and birth. And I think here she's, well, how brave, right, to put herself um, in the middle of this painting and the trauma that she's experiencing. But as she does it, I think, right, it really teetering out. I mean, look at the pelvis. There's different parts. I think that the part that she's tied to, including the fetus, um, that she puts on the canvas in front of her, and therefore lets it out. Although those emotions come out of her body, out of her, it's a way of dealing with life, really. Um, and for so many women, this painting will resonate because, like you said, from the experiences. Um, that's what artwork is for. It can help move things. It can help move people and talk about things that people don't often talk about, which are really important to talk about. So let's go to the next one. Thanks, Katie, for putting our attention on that. I mean, a lot of you have artwork that deals with transforming something. So let's go over here. Let me close this one, sorry. Okay, so we're at the artwork of Pedro Reyes. Let's go from the current slide. And what I found interesting about this artist, very different contemporary artist now. Maria, you presenting it through this presentation, which is great. So working today, but look at what he does here. According to Reyes, art is one of the few cultural environments that allow you freedom, right? Art allows one freedom. Art is like many things, different things, and many artists have come up with their own definition of what art is. He believes that everyone can do art, but not everyone is an artist. I would say that everyone can learn to be one, right? And it's so important for each of us to take again everything that we can to make our life as beautiful as possible. What he does here, what you're not seeing here in the metal, these look like metal sculptures, but he's taking gun parts and transforming them into music. Okay, so he's actually taking literal guns and welding them and melting them into something else, right? The one thing that the purpose of the gun is for is to kill another human being, right? But to take that, that's my main purpose of the function of that thing. Um, but to make it sing, to re-envision what that material is and change it so that it never shoots again. I mean, it's brilliant. Um, this is an image you see Pedro Reyes distributing grasshopper burgers actually in Mexico City in 2015. Another one of the raw materials for protein that one can have is from insects. And what he realized is that he can change people's minds about first of all, it would be much more ecological if we ate insects like grasshoppers instead of beef, right? There's many more insects that you can gather that you can pound into. Anyway, so he ground up the grasshoppers, he created patties, and then he gave out so that people would taste it and figure out, it's actually not that different from a burger from beef, but ecologically, it's much more sufficient. Um, so here are his two different ones. I chose this image. Okay. Reyes was born in 72. He did projects that proposed social solutions to social problems. We still need that. He turned guns into musical instruments and he transformed existing problems into ideas for a better world. He studied architecture at this university. I choose this image where he is riding in his grasshopper food cart in Mexico City. He was out giving out grasshopper burgers to people. Him engaging with the society caught my attention. I mean, that's what artists I think do. I mean, a lot of them like to be in the studio, but this is part of the job of the artist is to reimagine and reinvent and reinterpret what may be these things around us that even though they may be destructive, like the guns, what else can happen with them? What else can we do with them? Because it's not okay to leave it as a weapon. All right. He does read a tremendous amount. In this picture below, he is preparing materials for People's United Nations General Assembly. He believed in art to be a communication exercise, and that art he does is not hard to understand. The four artworks I choose to add to this was because of the meaning of them. Turning weapons into instruments was an amazing idea. I fully agree. His engagement with the people by distributing grasshopper burgers was a good way to be part of the society. Being a part of the society and trying to make changes for a better world caught my attention. It is like he said, if you don't start, no one will. Um, we all need to start. This is the beginning. He doesn't believe that an artwork is for just the art's sake, but also able to solve problems. That's how he sees it. It's very important to create a vision of things and how you want them to be. According to Pedro Reyes, art can introduce a strange idea to the world and it can be accepted. It changes habits. It changes how we live in the world. Well done. A few more. Bear with me. Let's go to, oh yeah, this, Guadalupe Maravilla is fantastic. He is a survivor of cancer. He was a child immigrant to, from Mexico, but he himself is not from Mexico, but he was one of the first children immigrants that was crossing the border on his own, which is highly traumatic experience. And so he talks about the process of healing. Let's go to Guadalupe Maravilla and the sound of healing through sound and what that can be. So Maravilla was born in 76 in El Salvador. He creates intricately layered paintings, large-scale sculptures, and therapeutic performances that draw on his personal history and his Central American ancestry, often resembling mythical creatures or ornate reliquaries. Maravilla's work examined themes of migration, disease, and generational trauma while creating new rituals for care, healing, and regeneration. I mean, if this is absolutely right for the time that we're living in. Why is it important? From the list to choose from, I chose Guadalupe Maravilla simply because of her first name and last name, since her name, but his name, means a very dear virgin in the Catholic community, and it is also my middle name. Yeah. And his last name, Maravilla, means wonderful. That's right. Just because of her name, I imagined a lady writer and painter. But when I started to investigate, I realized that it was a completely different person from what I had imagined. My surprise was that he was a man, and he is originally from my country and hometown. Amazing, El Salvador. Okay, so Maravilla, at 8 years old, was part of the first wave of undocumented, unaccompanied children to immigrate to the United States. Today, the artist's work is a means both to process that experience and to create healing spaces that address the harsh realities of migration and immigration. Maravilla juxtaposes indigenous and contemporary forms of knowledge, craft, and language in his work, drawing on the rich cultural legacies of indigenous and immigrant peoples. I mean, this goes back. Look at how the way this is drawn. This goes back and looks like almost the migration of the Aztec people. Remember that drawing of where there was that tree in the middle, and that was a story of that they were supposed to be moving and migrating. But an amazing drawing here. So Guadalupe overcame colon cancer, which led him to shift his practice more openly towards the link between trauma and disease and the possibilities of healing through an alternative methods. Maravilla builds huge shrine-like sculptures made up of anatomical models, lufas, gongs, found objects, and totemic materials from all over Central America. Activated through performance, disease casters are worn as headdresses and played like musical instruments, emitting sound frequencies that encourage meditative, therapeutic, and healing processes. Maravilla works closely with undocumented and underserved communities, distributing resources and hosting workshops that provide access to ancient modes of healing, such as herbal medicine, mycology, sound baths. A person, after having gone through what he went through, arriving in this country only at age 8 and surviving cancer, is never the same again. They are people full of love, full of humanity, and they take out that love for the art medium. I mean, amazing. And again, if you need any kind of help and healing, look up some sound meditations and just lie down and listen. It's a really important way to process pain and trauma. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much for bringing him to our attention. Couple more, and then we'll see a few final projects. All right. Actually, maybe we'll just do one. Let's go look. No, let's do two. Sorry. Elisa by Valencia, thank you so much for bringing her to our attention. Elisa Nassenbaum is from Current Slide. Was born in Mexico City in 1977. Her portraits are the manifestations of exchanges with her subjects taking place over time. Distinct social groups are at the foreground of her work, including immigrants, dancers, members of grassroots organizations, and subway and health workers. She engages with these groups on a various levels, sharing resources, skills, and ultimately social representation. So what she does is she paints these incredible portraits of people that are important. And that changes things because oftentimes the history of art and painting is to a select few people who were able to pay for the painting to be commissioned. And so history is full of these usually rich, white, male, sometimes female, but paid for by the males. So that's 90% of history is just that in terms of painting. But what's important is that if you recognize people through painting, first of all, that painting can last for thousands of years, right? So that image of that person will outlive them most likely, and you commemorate them, right? You commemorate the people that are important, and of course, everybody's important. So this piece here is called London Underground, Brixton Station, and Victoria Line staff. It features staff members such as cleaners, customer service assistants, and bank office staff. This particular piece speaks to me here in relation to Valencia because even though the people in the painting have different job titles, they hang out like they are equals. And shouldn't we all, right? Nobody's higher than anybody in the picture. When I was the director of the child care center, I treated my teachers with respect and never made them feel like I was above them. I was always helping out in the classroom and made myself available to anybody who needed me. In my opinion, this piece in Elisa says, no matter our job titles, we are all human. Right? Can you imagine the level of respect, right? And think about, look at the patterns that are behind, like the beautiful colors. And you have the group, the community, which is the important part. We'll end in this quote. The biggest resource we have is these relationships and the communities that have continued. Your resources are the people around you. I love this quote by Lisa. It speaks to me because in the Black community, we are all we got. So we have to stick together in order to make it. Instead of fighting each other, we need to be there for one another. And I think this extends to the whole of the human or past even human race. I think if we don't understand that we're in relation to everybody else, we're in trouble. And it was clear in COVID, right? Everybody, the essential workers that should be essentially paid, were the ones that can help save your life, right? Um, let's look at, well, it's a bit long, so I'm not going to go too long. I just wanted to be short. Thank you so much again. If you need anything from now until next semester, I'm going to be online, but you can always email me. If you need any plants, I have some pothos at home. I have monsteras. I propagate them and bring them for my students. So if you're interested in the garden, please let me know. It's really important to surround yourself not only for clean air and oxygen with these plants, or that are available to us are all around, but it also makes one feel those colors, particularly the color green, is really healing. So if you, yeah, happy to provide plans for the whole class if you would like one. I'll probably leave them somewhere by the garden. There's already mint in the garden. If you want to go pick that up, it's behind building 4. Let me know if you would like some of that. Thank you very much for the course, for taking it. And I hopefully will see some of you in the future in future courses. Be well and take care.